Welcome everybody to the 7th edition of USUK Chronicles. Here we are with a video of our amazing interview with the wonderful David J. Fielding. What a man, what a hero to Jamie and Tom. I mean, come on, the guy played Zordon in the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, which, as everyone knows, is a huge deal to Tom and Jamie. Listen and watch this amazing interview. David is absolutely incredible, talked all about his time on the Power Rangers, how he made the show, everything he did, and also talks about his amazing new book called Glims. Check it out, check out his wonderful video, but all I'm going to say is I do apologise for the fact that I am, it's Jamie speaking by the way, I'm massive on the left hand side of the screen for some unknown reason. Really should be the guest, shouldn't it? There we go, we didn't plan that very well. Anyway, enjoy, because this is amazing.
I'm all right. Not bad. Not bad. Can you see me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Awesome.
Tommy, you there?
Yeah, sorry, I'm here. Sorry. It's because you were all having a conversation with yourself. Didn't want to start jumping in, so apologies.
I love the fact that you're wearing that shirt. That's awesome.
What, this one?
Yes.
Are you a Steelers fan yourself, sir?
Well, I wouldn't say I was a fan, but I spent a great deal of time in Pittsburgh, and I really enjoy the city. So there you go.
Well, we're off to a flyer. This is going to be a great interview. David, you're already a hero to me.
Yeah.
Jamie, would you like to take us away, sir?
Yeah, I was going to say, David, what I normally do is do a little intro, and then we just crack on with the interview, ask a bunch of questions.
Yeah, sounds good.
Sounds good to you? Wonderful. Right. Ladies and gents, today's guest brought to life one of the most iconic characters of all time, as far as I'm concerned. If it wasn't for the immortal words, Alpha, Rita's escaped, recruit a team of teenagers with attitudes, we wouldn't have the coolest kids show ever made. Here to tell the story about the amazing Zordon of Eltar. Welcome to the show, Mr. David Fielding. Oh,
thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on, my friend.
Oh, you bet.
So, David, first and foremost, how's your year been?
It has been a year. 2020 is definitely one of those things that's going to go in the record books. I mean, it has just been crazy. COVID aside, I mean, there's just been so many different things happening this year that are just, it's just like one right after the other. You think everything's going to like be calm and then something else happens, and it's just been crazy. But yeah. Doing our best over here. So
it's almost like you expect dinosaurs to make a return in December, don't you?
Exactly. Right.
Did you manage to, did you learn anything new? Did you teach yourself anything, like learn a language or?
No, but I have spent a great deal amount of my time working on my novels, so I hope I've used my time constructively. But again, there's always the that I didn't. I wasted a lot of time too. I mean, I play video games and stuff, and I spent far too much time playing Red Dead Redemption and other things. But I've kept myself sane, put it that way. Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't call playing Red Dead Redemption a waste of time, to be honest with you. I'd call that definitely productive.
Yeah. Well, I got to maintain my daily streak. I got to have my streak. I'm pretty close to cracking the 300 mark, so I gotta keep playing.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's incredible. So 2020's best year you've spent, I think, there, to be fair.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So take us back to the start. Where did the desire to start acting come from with you?
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, I guess I've always been sort of a creative-minded individual. When I would read comic books as a kid, my father was in the Air Force, and one of the things that he brought home for my brother and sister and I to play with was a parachute. And I would take that parachute and I would make a curtain out of it, and I would act out my comic books for my parents. I would make them sit in the carport while I acted out my favorite scene from the comic books. And I kind of grew out of that as I got a little older. And in junior high, I think it was, I signed up for drama class, and I was going to be in the school's production of Your Good Man, Charlie Brown. That year they were going to do a Charlie Brown show. But for whatever reason, the schedule got flipped. And when it came time to sign up for drama again, I chickened out and backed out. But I got back into it in high school. So the urge to act, to be a performer was always sort of there. But I didn't get my first taste for it until high school. And once I was up on stage and once I heard the applause and the audience reaction for the first time, I was pretty hooked. So, yeah.
I think, why did you back out in junior?
Well, for one reason, the school schedule got flipped.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I was taking drama in the fall. I was supposed to have choir in the spring, but for whatever reason, I don't know if it was some sort of school scheduling conflict or something, but they flipped those, and so I did choir in the fall. And when it came time again to restructure my schedule of classes in the spring, I opted not to take the drama. I chickened out. I was like, I'm not going to do that yet. So It was what it was.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Well, how did the role for Zordon come about then? Were you approached about that, or did you find it?
Well, I mean, this shows you the power of networking, right? Because I went to my undergrad college was in San Marcos, Texas. At a college called Southwest Texas State University. It's just Texas State now. Yeah. And I made a lot of friends there. And when I went to the University of Pittsburgh to get my master in fine arts in acting, a lot of them had moved out to California. So when I got through with my master's program in the spring of '92, near the end of the summer of '92, I moved out to California, and I already had sort of like a network of friends out there from people from back in Texas. And 2 months after I landed in LA, my friend Stacy Fish, who was working at Saban at the time as a production assistant on their straight-to-video movies that they were doing, she was also like second AD for this kids television pilot that they were shooting. And she called me up one day and said, we have a role that I think you'd be great for. I'm going to submit your name to the casting people, and they'll probably call you. And I got a call, and they asked me to come down to the Saban building in the afternoon to audition. And I thought it was going to be like any other cattle call, where I would go down there. There would be like 1,000 other guys. I would read lines, go home, and never hear anything, because that's pretty much the process of how things work. But when I got down to the Saban building that afternoon, I found out it was just me and another guy, that they planned on casting it that night and shooting it the following week. And, you know, they wanted to make sure that we were free on the day that they were going to film. And I said, yes, I was free. And so he got his lines and he went into one corner, and I got my lines and I went into another corner. And they took him in first, and he was in there for about 20 minutes, and then he left. And then I walked in, and I met the director, the producers, some of the studio people, and I met the original cast. They were all in the front row, and they had me stand up on a table, and I basically used the voice that they ended up using in the show. And Austin St. John, the original Red Ranger, said, well, I guess we found our Zoltar, and that was the name of the character for the pilot. And they said, thanks, congratulations, we'll be in touch. And I went home, and 2 hours later got a phone call saying I got cast. So the following week, I was in a makeup chair, got all my hair shaved off, and the rest is history. So
that's amazing.
How did they pitch the character to you, like, especially with the look of the character?
They didn't pitch anything to me. It was basically said, the character is a 10,000-year-old wizard. He's trapped in a time warp. Go. that was all the information I was ever given. And I think at the time, for the longest time, that was the only information they had about the character. They didn't really go into any sort of detail about where he was from, why he was associated with the morphing grid, why he had the ability to create these Zords and power coins and all this other kind of stuff. That was all just sort of stuff out in the ether that, I may be wrong about that. They may have had detailed information in the character Bible that I never saw, but because the character was an American invention for the show, there's no Sentai equivalent for Zordon. They had the Barza character from the Zoo Ranger show, which is where the footage was taken from for all the fight stuff for the Rangers. but there was no real sort of like story associated stuff about Zordon and the Sentai. So they didn't really focus on that. Zordon's function in the show was basically just expository. He would tell the Rangers what was going on, the best way to do this, and to, you know, encourage them all the time, and basically tell them I believe in you and that sort of thing, which was great. But I mean, it was all very surface. There was not a lot of depth to it, and of course that's because the show was geared toward a certain age group, and as you get older, you start to be you start to see how thin things are, and but I mean, it's set up for like I said, it's set up for a certain age group, but there's also room for a great deal of potential, and we're seeing that in the comic books these days with Ryan Parrott and Kyle Higgins and the other folks who are working on those books, really sort of drilling down and getting to the details about answering some of the questions that adult fans might have these days about, well, why do things work this way? Why was Zordon in charge? And was Zordon really a nice guy, or did he have an ulterior motive for doing all this kind of thing? So, you know, it's very interesting. So
that's awesome. So I was doing my research for the show. I was looking on your IMDb, and the Power Rangers is the earliest thing listed. Was that your first job, or was it just?
It was my first Hollywood job. Yeah, it was my first Hollywood job. First and only Hollywood job, really. So yeah.
But that's amazing. What a first job to get.
Well, I mean, I was only in LA for about a year and a half. I got burned out very quickly because in order to pay bills and pay rent, I had to take several jobs. I was working 2 jobs, and I wasn't auditioning, and I was a part of a improv comedy troupe out there called the LA Connection. I was working with them for a while, and so after a year and a half of doing that and meeting a number of people that were working at the LA Connection and hearing their stories about living in LA for 10, 15, 20 years and never really cracking it, never really getting a job, just, you know, getting these bit parts or walk-on roles, and taking a really hard look about who I was and how I looked and what the camera liked and what the camera didn't like. I made a really hard decision about saying, well, you know, I don't think the on-camera thing really is for me. And when I was working on the show, I became fairly good friends with the head writer, Tony Oliver. And I had been, in addition to my acting, I had also been very interested in writing from a young age, and had written plays and had written short stories and something like that. So I was working with Tony about trying to develop some script ideas for Power Rangers episodes. Stayed out there. Had I stayed on the show, I'm fairly certain that I might have been given the opportunity to write episodes for Power Rangers, which would have been a very interesting experience. But I felt kind of guilty in a way, because here I was, just this kid. I was 29 at the time, and I just showed up in LA one day, and I got this kid's TV show, and there had been people that I'd met that had been there for, you know, half their lives trying to do the same thing that I did and still hadn't done it. So I felt extremely lucky and extremely humbled by the fact that I was able to do this. But then I found out fairly quickly that it really wasn't for me. If I wanted to stay out there and do some of the things that I wanted to do, there were certain parts of my personality that I would have to change or alter, and I don't think I wanted to be that person. So I made the very hard choice of saying, you know what, I think I better go back to the East Coast and do something else, do more stage plays or something else, because making TV shows and movies is a very interesting process. It's a lot of, from an actor standpoint, there's a lot of just sitting around, and the feedback loop for a film or a television actor is a lot longer than normal. if you're an actor on a stage play, your feedback loop is pretty much immediate. You know right away if the audience is enjoying you, if they're getting what you're saying, if they're having a good time. But like for Power Rangers, for example, we filmed the pilot in October of '92, but it didn't air until August of 1993. So that's a very long time for it to sort of like get back to you to figure out, is this something that people are going to like? So that was also something very interesting that I had to get to deal with. And I don't know if it's I wouldn't say it's ADD per se, but there is a great need to have that feedback a little bit faster for me or whatever. But again, each individual is different. Had I been filming every week like the rest of the cast, it might have been a completely different experience for me. But because they only filmed my character one time and made the decision to recycle that footage for the episodes, and I would just go in to do voices, I was only going in to be a part of the show like every 5 or 6 weeks. Whenever they had like 3 or 4 episodes ready to go, that's when they would bring me in to do voices, and I would do 3 or 4 voices, 3 or 4 episodes worth of voice at one time. And then they would say, okay, well, we'll call you when we have the next batch ready. And then I would go away. And so I was a part of the show, but I felt very much like Zordon. I was very disconnected. I was very separated from everybody else. And so I think that was a big factor into me making the decision to be like, you know what, I think I'll pass on this. It didn't have anything to do with the fact that I thought the show was crappy or that I was treated unwell. I was treated very well while I was there, but I just felt very much like I could have been replaceable, and I was very well very soon. I mean, they continued to use my face as throughout the life of the character, but they found Robert Manahan very quickly, and he just took over, and that was that. And for them, it was cost effective for them because it was like, okay, whatever, we can replace you, because I really was a nobody. I was just some guy that was out there that was trying to become an actor.
Oh, you just answered about 4 questions in one answer there. Yeah.
sorry about that.
It's over.
Because I was going to say, like, obviously, I wondered if you were actually there acting, or if you'd been there for like one part to do the. I assume you weren't in a tube.
No, I was basically in like what was like a barber chair, and I had been slathered with green latex paint, and they had a big green screen behind me. So the only thing that showed up on the film was my head, and they would take that footage and then they would insert it into the footage of the command center, and they would add like a watery blue filter over it so that he looked like he was wavering or he was in a time warp or whatever. So that was all done post-production. I wasn't in a tube on set or anything like that. I mean, the poor guys that were in the command center every week filming the episodes, they were just talking to a tennis ball on the wall. I wasn't even there. And they had some poor PA off on the side reading Zordon's lines, very Rangers, go to the command center. I mean, and that's very hard for them to try to act against because they were there the day that we filmed, and we had a very good exchange back and forth about, them being able to react to me. I was able to react to them. And I think we did a really good job for that pilot episode. So.
Wonderful.
Were you ever really on the set then? Obviously, I know when you filmed your parts, you weren't, but...
No, I did get a chance to visit the Juice Bar set, but I think they were all either filming out in the park and doing some fight scenes while I was there. But I got to walk through the Juice Bar. I got to see that, and that was pretty cool. But there were no cameras. There was nobody there. I was like, oh, man. Maybe Zordon can pour himself a drink or something.
It's a shame they didn't use that as like an extra, like walking in the background or something. I know it was like a school.
Yeah.
But, you could have been like...
That would have been a super awesome Easter egg if people had been like, oh, he's there.
Yeah, exactly. It could have helped Ernie out or something.
Ernie's new assistant. So, Were you expecting the show to be as popular as it was when it started?
No, I mean, I was excited about the premise of the show because I grew up watching Ultraman and Speed Racer and Battle for the Planet. So I was familiar with Japanese kaiju and Sentai stuff. So the idea of big rubber monsters and big giant robots and kids in spandex was awesome to me. I thought that was super awesome. But again, at the time, this was before the pop culture explosion, right? So the way I saw it is like, this is a great little Saturday morning cartoon show that will last for about a year or two, and then it'll change over and become something else. Because when I was growing up and I was watching television and all of the Sid and Marty Krofft shows were on, they would change like every year or so. You get like one season of Sigmund and the Sea Monsters, or it was only like certain cartoons that had like longevity, like Flintstones or Scooby-Doo or something like that. But these live action shows that they do, like the Bugaloos and stuff like that, they were around for about a season or two, and then they would be replaced by something else. So at the time I was thinking this thing would be, a fun little thing to do for a couple of years, and then it would go away. Not realizing and not having no knowledge whatsoever about all the stuff they were doing as far as the merchandising of the toys, which was what the whole show was all about. And it didn't really hit me how big the show was until the Christmas season of 1993, when I was walking through the mall in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania at Christmas time, and was passing by the KB Toys and seeing everybody in there fighting over these Power Ranger toys, and seeing the Power Dome up there with my face on it and going, wow, I'll never see a penny of that. But that was the first time I thought, oh, you know what? Maybe I should have stayed out there for another 6 months or something like that. But by that time, I was sort of like, oh, well, it is what it is. And that was that. But yeah, at the time, no, I had no idea that it would be something huge. No.
So
that's a very long answer again.
That's right. No, that's what we
like long answers.
Yeah, people listen to us for the other hour or so, they don't want to hear us talk during the interview. So did you have to sign off on your likeness then for the other series, and to them to use your face? Yeah,
the contract that I signed, the day player contract, was pretty ironclad. There was a lawyer that looked at it and said, "Well, sorry, buddy," because there was a certain phrase that they used in the contract, which was in perpetuity throughout the known universe, meaning that I would have to journey out beyond Pluto to even like try to file a lawsuit or something like that. But so they owned all the footage that they shot of that day, which is one of the reasons why the show was very cheap for them to produce. It was a non-union show, meaning that there were no residuals for the actors for the first couple of years that the show was shot. When you understand how much money they made in that first year from the merchandising and the toys, you think, wow, they really built this thing on a shoestring and made out like bandits on that thing. And more power to them. I mean, that's the way the cookie crumbles or whatever. But from an actor standpoint, it really kind of sucked, because it was, here I was on the screen, my name flashes across the screen, I was up there, and there was nothing I could do about it, or nothing that I really tried to do about it, because I understood how the game worked. It was like, well, that's welcome to Hollywood. That's how things work. So
bless you. Now that would explain why you weren't in the movie then in '96.
Yeah, because I had moved out of Los Angeles. They had called me when they were going to produce the film in Los Angeles, because I think it would have been okay for them to fly me back out for it. But when they made the decision to film in Australia, because it was non-union in Australia, they decided to cast a local down there, which again they would get for cheaper, which is why Zordon looks different in the movie than he does in the TV show.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So obviously you said that it was all filmed in that one day, but did you ever need to go back to film things at all, or was it literally all stock footage of that one day?
It's all stock footage from that one day. If you notice in later seasons, the character does not move very much at all. He's very static. In the early seasons, they would fuzz out his mouth, and so his head would still move, and he would still sort of have like reactions to things, but you could never see his lips move. And it was easier for them to write dialogue for the character that way, because they didn't have to sync up my lips to the dialogue. So from a technical standpoint, it was a really good choice for them because it made production easier. Again, from an actor standpoint, it sucked because if you're not able to react in real time to the situation, your line readings and your interpretation of the character are going to be very limited. It's always going to be very, very staid and very static, and that's what the character was. And so, like, if you're watching episodes like Countdown to Destruction at the end of the end of the Zordon era, Zordon's head is just basically sitting there, and you just hear his voice. There's no real reaction. His eyebrows don't move. His mouth doesn't move. So it was very limiting in a way, and that's why I thought the 2017 movie was great with Bryan Cranston, because the way they used the motion capture and the way that Bryan's face was able to move back and forth across the wall of the ship, it made the character much more dynamic. It actually looked like he was actually there. And, you know, we were limited by the technology of the time in 1993. So, again, you know, from a storyteller and an actor's standpoint, there was so much potential with the character, but it just wasn't part of the agenda of the show. So he just kind of got put off to the side, and he was there as needed, so to speak. Yeah.
That was why I asked, because like you were saying with the lip syncing, I was like, how could they have so many years of this character and you don't know if he said every single word? It's like, right, and David, I need to say and then but where.
Right. And you know, if you go back and you watch some of the episodes, a lot of the times that Zordon is talking, you're seeing other footage, like he's describing what the purse monster looks like or whatever. So you're watching the monster do stuff in Angel Grove Park while Zordon is speaking, and then they'll have like a 2 or 3 second shot of Zordon's reaction to that or whatever. So you never really see his mouth move. You never really see him talking directly to the Rangers. Yeah.
That's all I'm going to notice now if I look back at old episodes. So obviously you mentioned the 2017 movie. That must have been quite surreal, finding out that Bryan Cranston, of all people, is going to reimagine this character you brought to life.
I mean, before the casting was announced, I would get messages from people say, you know, who do you think they're going to be cast? Who would you cast if you had a choice? And when they announced that Bryan was going to be cast, I thought, oh, that's pretty awesome. My chances of meeting him just jumped up 50%. That's super sweet. Because, you know, I really admired him from Malcolm in the Middle and Breaking Bad. And of course, he did voices on the show. I mean, he did the voice of Snizzard in one of the episodes. So he had an association with Power Rangers back at the same time that I did. I mean, so that was awesome. Yeah, so you can go back and you can look up those episodes where Bryan did a couple of monster voices, and
amazing.
He had been doing voices for some of the Saban projects before that. I think he might have been, I don't know if he did voices for Robotech or not, but he'd had some sort of association with Saban before, or at least the engineers and stuff that worked with Saban that did the voice casting and stuff. But yeah, when they announced that he was going to do it, I thought, oh, that's such a great choice. And then seeing his performance, I was like, that's awesome. It was very strange being in the audience when the movie came out and hearing the name Zordon, and nobody was looking at me, and I was like, okay. But you know, it was a lot of fun. Yeah,
that movie did get quite a lot of mixed reviews. I enjoyed it, and I liked their version of Zordon. He was a bit of a dick at the start, which I kind of
that's what I liked about it. He was kind of a jerk, and you know, he was so focused on fixing the problem that he couldn't see his own contribution to the problem, that he was part of the problem. And you know, of course, he redeems himself through Billy's sacrifice and that sort of thing. So I thought that was a great reintroduction to the character, and I did think that they captured the heart of what the show was all about. That it was about these diverse individuals coming together and believing in each other and creating a team and facing down these villains and, you know, triumphing in at the end. So I think they captured the heart of it, but I just think that there were a few missteps that didn't connect with the old fans as opposed to like the new fans. Like Austin St. John and I have done quite a number of conventions together and Q&As together, and we both agree that, you know, man, the Zords back on the show were so much bigger, and they looked more iconic. You saw them and you understood what they were. The designs for the Zords in the 2017 movie might have been a little bit too alien for us, and both Austin and I were like, man, we miss Goldar. We miss our big golden monkey. The big gold monstrosity that they had in the movie was like, that's not Goldar.
It wasn't. No.
Yeah.
Were you approached about a cameo? Because I know Jason David Frank and Amy Jo Johnston were in the movie, but were you approached about a cameo appearance at all?
No, and I think that was sort of again one of those missteps that the producers made, that they could have included more of the original cast in these small cameo roles. I mean, if I'd been the owner of the Krispy Kreme and I'd been sweeping up or something like that, I didn't have. I mean, just like Amy and JDF, they didn't have any lines. You just saw them. If I had been the owner of the Krispy Kreme, or if Karen Ashley had been Billy's mom or something like that, I think that would have been those little hooks that would have really appealed to the fans of the original show. You know, for them to be able to point and look and go, oh, it's them. Oh, that would have been fun. But again, studios make decisions based on, who knows? I don't know, a magic 8-ball or some sort of marketing data or whatever. And, it all comes down to what they think are the choices that are going to give them the best return on their investment. And again, it's like the stock market. Who knows how that works? I mean, it's just craziness sometimes. But what can you do?
Because they're rebooting it again, aren't they? The movie, they're doing another one.
I believe Hasbro has plans to, and they just hired somebody to. Shoot, I can't remember his name. But he's going to be sort of rebooting the franchise, rebooting the universe, including possibly an animated version of Power Rangers, which would be a great opportunity for them to bring back the original actors to voice some of the parts and stuff.
Yes, please.
In 2018 at Power Morphicon, I had a chance to participate in a live read of Kyle Hagen's Shattered Grid comic book, and that was such a super great experience to actually have all of the voices on the table at the same time, reading it for the audience. And it was the first time in 27 years that Barbara and I were Zordon and Narita in the same room together, and it was just really great. I mean, you can watch it out on YouTube. It's a great little thing.
Sweet.
But I mean, for me, that just proved, that the audience would be hungry for an animated version with the original voices. Again, just a way to sort of expand the universe in a way.
Well, let's hope that comes up.
Did I read that you came back to do the voice for the video game that came out last year?
Yeah, Battle for the Grid. Yeah, I went out, and because Kyle Higgins was hired by them to sort of massage his Shattered Grid storyline into sort of like the single player game, he brought several of the original actors back to voice their characters. So I did come back and did another take on Zordon's speech about trying to unite the Rangers from different dimensions together to fight and stuff. So, and I also got to do the voice of the Blue Xenozoic Ranger. So I actually got to be a Power Ranger.
Oh wow, that's awesome!
Yeah.
I'm currently reading. I've got Mighty Morphin and I've got Go-Go Power Rangers down there. I'm currently reading at the moment. Absolutely loving the books. I miss that show.
Yeah. They do such a great job with them. So.
Oh, absolutely! I'm loving the stories. I'm trying to collect them all before I read them properly, though, because I don't like having to wait.
Yeah, and I love the art. The guys that they get to do the art and the covers and stuff, they're just so dynamic and so they pop. You know what I mean? And
yes.
It's just visually pleasing to look at. So yeah.
So what I love about the Power Rangers, with its huge background, like three movies, sorry, it's got to be what 10 different versions of the series now. I've lost count as that many.
Yeah.
Is they have their own conventions, like you said with Power Morphicon. Now imagine you've got to look like as a god at them places. Like you are Zordon. It's like, none of this would have happened without you.
It's very humbling to know that people all over the world know who I am, and it wasn't until 2011 when because I joined Facebook, I want to say like in 2008 or something like that, but it wasn't until 2011 when I attended my first convention, and I went to a convention in Pittsburgh called TechShowCon, which was basically a anime manga convention, and because Power Rangers was sort of based on that kind of thing, I was invited as a guest, and that was the first time I sat on stage in front of an audience of people and got to experience their sort of side of things. And because for me, I sort of forgot about it for the longest time. It was just a very interesting anecdote that I could tell somebody at parties that, oh yeah, I was on a kids' TV show way back in the day or whatever. But it really brought it home to me that the power of the storytelling and what it meant to kids who were watching the show back in the day. Some of these kids who came from broken homes or were having a really tough time at school or were dealing with bullies and stuff like that, they had this show to go home and take comfort from, or to make them feel better about themselves, or to teach them a lesson, or to inspire them to get into martial arts, or to be much more heroic in their own lives. I mean, we've met so many people over the years that grew up to be EMTs and doctors and firemen and policemen people who actually put their lives on the front line to help other people every day. And so to know that we were a positive influence in that way is super, super humbling. I mean, it's one of the things I'm most proud about of my life is that I was, in some small way, able to touch different lives and sort of lift them up in a little way and make things better in the world. And again, in this time, in this day and age, in the year 2020, who doesn't need to be lifted up, right? I mean,
well, exactly.
If you turn on Power Rangers and it makes you feel good and it makes you remember what your childhood was like, and you forget about everything for half an hour and just giggle about how silly and stupid the show is, and or just really enjoy the fight sequences or whatever, that's great. That's fantastic. I mean, that's all of the things that have been inspired by the show. There are so many different fan projects and the cosplay and people who have put so much creative energy into paying homage to the show that they loved. I mean, that's priceless, that's pure gold. So, I mean, I forget what the original question was, but I mean, it's a very humbling experience, and I don't really think of myself as a god. And I try to discourage people from calling me that or referring to me that way, because I mean, so many gods have feet of clay and they topple over very easily. So I'd much rather be an approachable type of chubby little Buddha character that you could just come up and throw your arm around and said, "Hey man, let's have a tea together," or something like that. And I try to be as approachable as possible, without being, as long as things don't get too overwhelming or whatever. I'm an introvert at heart, and I like my space. So I mean, but yeah, I mean, conventions are always fun, and when we do Ranger Stop or Power Morphicon, which are very Ranger specific conventions, the fan base is such a great community. They're always fun to be around, and to see their little groups of friends sitting there talking about details and enjoying getting to know one another because of the show. I mean, that's very heartwarming and awesome. So,
well, if you're ever allowed back into the UK, then I'll definitely be down there to come and see you.
Well, I'd love to. I mean, I have family over there. My mother is English, and she grew up in the Ipswich area.
Oh yeah,
over there, and I visited in the early '90s, and I was in Ireland in 2016, I think it was. So I'm hoping to get over there at some point. So yeah, I mean, I would love to, but again, we have to wait for everything to calm down and be safe.
Yeah,
that kind of stuff.
When you were referring to the kids who used to get bullied, I was one of those children that used to get bullied a lot in my past, and I've always confided in Billy, in David Yost.
Yeah.
Huge. Everyone was always either Jason or Tommy, and I was always Billy. I absolutely loved him. I was mesmerized by him. The words he came out with, just everything about him. Really, I found a lot of inspiration from him, and I found him. What's the word I'm looking for? Like, I found comfort in him, basically.
Yeah. I mean, people always ask me who my favorite Ranger is, and of course, I don't have a favorite Ranger. I don't think Zordon would have a favorite Ranger. He would try to see all of the Rangers as equals, and they're all worthy of wearing the mantle of Ranger. But I myself identified with David's character because, like him, I grew up and I was very nerdy. I had glasses. My favorite dinosaur was the Triceratops. So,
oh, wow.
I identified with Billy. I mean, the color blue was awesome. And I just think they're all great. I mean, Jason's helmet design, the Tyrannosaurus, I think is super awesome. But when people ask me who's my favorite Ranger, I say, well, I don't have one, but I always identify with Billy because I grew up in similar circumstances. I wasn't terribly bullied, but I had experiences of being bullied, but not to the extent that Billy's character was. But yeah.
Well, yeah.
It's good because, like Tom was saying, he went to Power Rangers when he was bullied as a kid. I was the exact same. I didn't have many friends when I was a kid. If my mom felt the need to punish me for something, it was you're not allowed to watch the Power Rangers. And that broke my heart.
Yeah.
But still, to this day, if I'm having a really crappy day and I just want to chill out and cheer myself up, I'll go on Netflix and I'll load up Day of the Dumpster and I'll be like, this is good. Life's good now. I've got the Power Rangers. It's all good.
I mean, that guitar kicks in and it's the best thing ever, man.
Absolutely.
How have we not mentioned that yet? That's a damn good point.
I mean, there were so many factors coming together at the right time. They really captured lightning in a bottle because that rock and roll soundtrack, Ron Wasserman's music, is such a big part of the success of the show. When that theme kicks in, you're ready to stand up and take that martial arts pose, and you're ready to go to battle. So, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Love it. Love this. It was so hard to find.
Yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself. I do apologize.
So before we move on to something, I just wanted to ask you about Glims and the Order. We spoke about the Power Rangers. Let's talk about what's coming up. What's going on with you now? So
there's not a whole lot of information about the Order. It's still like in production. Karen is working really hard to try to get it pitched as a series. So that's basically the only information I have about the Order at this point. We're still trying to get it made. We're still working. This year, of course, things have been a little bit difficult because things have slowed down to a crawl because not a whole lot of people are producing stuff right now. But Karen is working really hard to try to get it pitched as a TV series. But that's the only information I have about the Order right now. Yes.
Karen Ashley is in Yellow Ranger.
I'm sorry?
And that's Karen Ashley is in the Yellow Ranger.
Yeah, the second Yellow Ranger. Yes.
Yeah. I just want to say that I love the fact that you've got most of the original Power Rangers cast in the order. I noticed.
Yeah.
So like Austin St. John's there, David Yost there, Walter Jones is there, and I forget his name, but he played Bulk.
Paul Schreier.
Yeah, Paul Schreier. That's it. Yeah, absolutely incredible. That's I just love the fact that they're on there.
In my opinion, Paul Schreier and Jason Narvi, Bulk and Skull, are the heart and soul of Power Rangers. If you didn't have those guys, again, it's one of those factors that makes the show what it is. And Bulk and Skull have this amazing arc throughout the show, throughout the seasons, where they start off as these bumbling idiots who, they try to be bullies, and they are the worst bullies because they're not very good at it, and they're laughing stocks. But by the end of it, they are heroes in their own right. They lead the charge, fighting against everything. So they become very heroic, and I think that's such an amazing arc. And Paul and Jason are just two of the sweetest guys you'd ever meet. And if you didn't have Bulk and Skull, you wouldn't have Power Rangers. But I mean, and getting back to Glims, my writing. Glims was a story that I centered around a character that I came up with by the name of Lincoln Bright. Lincoln is an attuned, meaning that he sees and hears things that other people don't. As an author, you want to come up with stories that if you're writing in a specific genre, you're always trying to find a different hook for them to make. It has to be familiar for people if they want to read it, but it also has to have a little new spin on it in order to keep them interested. So I was sitting there trying to think, well, I want to write a ghost story, but I don't want to talk about ghosts because everything under the sun has already been written about ghosts. There's ghost hunters on TV. There's, different types of ghost movies that are always being made. So I tried to come up with a different language in order to describe what ghosts might be for this character, phantoms or spirits or whatever term you want to use. And that's what glims are. Glims are Lincoln's term for these nasty, awful, terrible entities that stay behind after somebody passes away. In Lincoln's world, whenever somebody passes away, we all generate a glim. But most of those glims disappear within a few seconds or a few minutes because they understand that they're not supposed to be here, and they just dissipate, they disappear. But all of the bad stuff in life, all of the crimes you might commit, or all of the negative emotions that you might be holding onto your life, sometimes that stays behind, and that stuff manifests into these terrible entities that then begin to pick away at the fabric of reality. What he calls stitching. They stitch a hole in the world. And if they stitch a big enough hole in the world, something else that lives on the other side is going to come through. And those are the things from the other side that come through, he calls the dead. And they are these alien entities that are ravenous and hungry and simply live to consume. And Lincoln has taken upon himself to sort of try to stop these glims wherever they might manifest and to take care of them, to get rid of them. So that's what Glims is all about.
That sounds awesome.
That sounds incredible.
I think it sounds awesome, and I think it would be a great movie. But it's one of those things, you have to get it in front of the right person who believes in it. And stuff. So
absolutely.
And again, that goes back to full circle about what we were talking about. How did I get to the role of Zordon? It's all about the networking. It's all about what you know or who you know or whatever. And so, if you talk to any celebrity or any film star or something like that, they're all going to have a similar story about there's that one person who opened a door for them or who went to bat for them. And I think that's a very important element of your success as an artist, is that you have to have somebody who believes in you and says, you need to take a chance on this. And so I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that somebody out there will read it and go, you know what, I'm going to take a chance on this. So.
Is Glims available in the UK?
Yeah, it's available right now on the Barnes and Noble website. You should be able to purchase it.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yeah,
I'll be doing that.
I can send you guys a link when we get off here. And
Yes, please.
Yep,
that'd be wonderful. Thank you, David.
It should be on Amazon soon. I'm supposed to be getting like a hard copy of the hardcover, but again, because of COVID, things are moving much more slowly. Book 2 in the Lincoln Bride series, Gaunts, will be out next February. And right now I'm working on book 3, Gifts. So
wonderful. I'm excited now.
Thank you.
Right. We've got some fan submitted questions. Before I move on to Tom, did you have any other questions you wanted to ask?
No, I just want to say, David, thank you so much for doing this. You're an absolute
my pleasure. My pleasure.
Really enjoyed it.
It's amazing that we have this technology that you guys are 6 hours ahead and we're talking in real time. So that's
it is. So we when we do these interviews, we like to put it out to our listeners. If anyone's got any questions, we've had a couple come forward. Bruce wants to know, how much interaction did you have with the cast?
In the original filming, not much. I mean, I met them the day I auditioned, and the day we filmed, of course, we traded lines back and forth, but we never had a chance to like hang out or go to lunch or anything like that. Things were, the day that we filmed my character was the very last thing that they filmed for the pilot. And they had been filming for a number of weeks, and the director and most of the crew were sick. So they were a good ways away from me because they didn't want to like get me infected or anything like that. So, and because there were a lot of bright lights the day that we filmed, all of the original cast that would stand there delivering the lines, they were just shadows to me. And it was only until 20 years later that I get to go back to conventions and I get to meet David and Austin and Walter all over again. And it was like not a day had passed. They go, "Oh yeah, of course we remember you. Yeah. They shaved your hair off." And so, yeah, it was, but at the time we had very little interaction, unfortunately. So, yeah.
So obviously you said that you stepped away. Oh, am I breaking up?
No, you're okay.
Oh, okay. Sorry. You said that you stepped away because it wasn't for you. But in hindsight, do you wish that you got to play Zordon like outside of being a floating head, done like a flashback sort of thing?
Yeah, I think it would have been great. Again, I think that was one of the factors why it was easy for me to decide to walk away, because from my perspective, from everything that I was seeing, there was no plans to ever bring Zordon out of the tube. He was always going to be he was an info dump, really. He would just provide all this information, and the Rangers would go and take care of business or whatever. There was no plans for them to ever bring the character outside of the tube. And again, I think that was based on the fact that there was no Sentai equivalent. There was no storyline that would sort of guide them to say, yeah, you could explore this character's background, because there's footage that they could use to accompany that. And so it was very easy for me to sort of, well, I mean, it wasn't easy, but I mean, it was, it made it much more simpler to say I can cut ties on this and walk away and not feel bad about it. But I think it was a missed opportunity. They could have done some very interesting things with the character. I just don't think it was in the blueprint for the show from the get-go.
And I forgot to say, so Jeff Nicholson put that question forward. And Jeff had another amazing question. Now, I'm going to have to paraphrase this to best. Tom, you're going to have to help me out with this one. Your memory's so much better than mine. He basically said, what do you think that Zordon's criteria was for teenagers of attitude? Because he himself is a teenager. He's a teacher. And the teenagers in his school do things like order Uber Eats to reception, drink a giant can of Red Bull in one go, trash the classroom, you name it.
I don't know what Zordon's criteria was, because from my understanding, Zordon didn't choose them. The morphing grid chose them. But the whole idea of teenagers with attitude, I think when you hear that for the first time, you think, oh yeah, teenagers, they're lazy, they're always thumbing their nose at you because they're they're all self-involved with their own little tragedies or whatever. And Teenagers with Attitude is like, oh, why do I want to deal with this difficult person, you know?
Yeah.
But I've always looked at it as that the Teenagers with Attitude is exactly what Kimberly says. We're just not going to back down. That these are the guys who are going to stand up in the fight, and they're going to continue to fight until they win. And so that's what the attitude is that the Power Rangers are here, they're here to stay, and they're not going to back down.
That's wonderful. Absolutely glorious.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I'm Zordon, right? So.
Exactly.
The last one of these we got from Simon Mitchell is, how many different voices did you try before settling on the one that you chose for Zordon?
That was the voice. When I went in for the audition, I could, because the room that we were in was, I mean, it was a large lobby sort of area, but I could still hear the other actor trying his vocal interpretation of the lines, and he went in a completely opposite direction than I did. He was trying for much more of a wizard type voice. He was like, Power Rangers, I want you to come in here and, you know, here are your power coins. And I was thinking to myself, not really sure that's the angle they're going for.
Imagine that in Alpha 5. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, when I was told that the character was a 10,000-year-old wizard and he was trapped in a time warp, one of the things that immediately popped into my head was I was a big fan of Greek mythology when I was growing up. And I loved the stories of these ancient Greek heroes and this group of gods that would live up on high. So the image that immediately popped into my head was Zeus, that there would be this all-powerful, all-knowing, benevolent deity, even though in the Greek myths Zeus is not benevolent at all. But that's what I had in my mind, that it would be a much more deeper, resonant, more father-like tone rather than this sort of like bizarre wizard type character who was trying to, you know, change things in the universe or whatever. So I went in with one voice, and that was the voice they chose. So I didn't try. I mean, over the years I've always fantasized, you know, what it would have been like, you know, if Arnold Schwarzenegger had been Zordon or something like that. It would have been very interesting, you know, to do different types of cakes on the character. It would have been very, very funny. But you know, maybe Christopher Walken step in, Zordon, take it out. It's crazy, you know.
So good.
Here's Zordon doing a Christopher Walken impression.
Yeah. The command center is wonderful. You know, Alpha, sweep up because guests are coming over. Do it. Clean it. Wrap it up. Let's go. More cowbell. Maybe we'll do that if a cartoon ever gets done. We'll do that. You know, we'll do the outtakes or whatever. But
yes, please. That's a wonderful idea.
Can you still do the voice?
USUK Chronicles. May the power protect you.
Oh.
Absolutely amazing. My mind has exploded then. That was absolutely glorious.
Oh, that's my new ringtone. That's sorted. David, thank you so much. Before we get out of here, anything you want to plug, social medias, websites, wherever? Anything.
Yeah, I mean, you can find me on Twitter at David J. Fielding, Instagram, DJ Fielding _Zordon. If you do a search for Zordon on Facebook, my Zordon page should pop up. If you like ghost stories, if you like paranormal urban fantasies, please check out my book, Glims. I think it's a great story. I think you'll enjoy the character. And that's about it.
David, thank you so much,
It's been
my
an
friend.
absolute honor.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Glad to meet you guys.
Yeah, you too. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day and stay safe.
Will do.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you very much, my friend.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Find all this great content and more at the USUK Podcast Network.